When Nina Simone sat down at the piano at Carnegie Hall in January of 1964, the audience laughed. They thought it was a comedy number. The title sounded like a punchline. The opening tempo was jaunty, almost theatrical. Not what anyone expected from the woman who had made her name playing Bach and Gershwin with the precision of a conservatory-trained classical pianist. Nobody in the room yet understood what they were listening to. Then Nina Simone stopped playing. She looked out at the audience. She said, "It is not funny." The room went quiet. She began again from the beginning. Diane was 22 years old and sitting in the third row that January night. She had grown up in Birmingham, Alabama, had left it the previous August for her first year of study at Juilliard in New York, which was more miles and more worlds away from Birmingham than the distance on a map suggested. She had seen Nina Simone perform twice before and had come to Carnegie Hall with the specific anticipation of someone who knows what they are about to receive and is already grateful for it before it arrives. She laughed when the rest of the audience laughed. She stopped laughing before the rest of them did. Somewhere in the first 4 bars, not in the lyrics, which she had not yet registered, but in the pressure underneath the jaunty surface, the specific quality of something that was presenting itself as light while being the opposite of light, she stopped. She did not yet know what she had stopped laughing at. She only knew that the laughter was the wrong response and she needed to stop producing it. Eunice Kathleen Wayman was born on February 21, 1933, in Tryon, North Carolina, the 6th of 8 children of a Methodist minister and his wife, a domestic worker. She began playing the piano at 3 years old. Her talent was visible to everyone who encountered it, which is the specific kind of talent that does not require expertise to recognize. A white woman in the town, moved by what she heard from the child playing in church, organized a private fund among the white community to pay for Eunice's formal piano lessons. Her teacher was a classically trained pianist named Muriel Mazanovich. She received, through Mazanovich, the full formal vocabulary of the classical tradition: theory, counterpoint, harmony, technique, the intellectual and physical equipment of a musician who intends to operate at the highest level. By 12, she was performing Bach and Handel and Schubert at recitals that drew audiences from across the county. By 16, she understood that her talent was not the question. The question was what the world was going to permit her to do with it. At 16, she gave a recital at a local hall. When her parents arrived, ushers directed them to the seats reserved for black audience members, at the back. She stopped the recital before it began. She told the organizers that her parents would sit in the front row or she would not play. Her parents were moved to the front. She played. It was her first public refusal. She was 16 years old, and she had discovered, in that moment, that the refusal was possible, that stopping and holding your position was a thing that could be done, and that the consequences of doing it were, in this instance, what she had needed them to be. She applied to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, one of the great classical conservatories in America, the institution that had trained a significant portion of the country's most accomplished classical musicians. She prepared for the audition with the seriousness she brought to everything. She played. She was rejected. She believed, with a certainty that never left her and that she spoke about directly for the rest of her life, that the rejection was not about the quality of her playing. She had spent more than a decade performing for people who told her she was exceptional. She understood the difference between being rejected for what you played and being rejected for what you were. The Curtis rejection felt like the second kind. It became the fixed point around which the rest of her life organized itself, the closed door that redirected everything that followed. She moved to Atlantic City and began playing in a bar near the beach to pay her rent. She needed a performing name that would prevent her devoutly religious family from discovering she was playing in bars. She took Nina, a childhood nickname, and Simone, borrowed from the French actress Simone Signoret. She played Gershwin and Bach and whatever the room required, and she began to sing, which had not been part of the plan, because the room responded to her singing, and she needed the room to respond. In 1958, I Loves You Porgy, a Gershwin song, the kind of material she had been playing since childhood, reached the top 20 on the pop chart. She was 25 years old and had been playing in Atlantic City for 4 years and was now, without having planned it, publicly known. The career that followed was not easily categorized. She was classified as a jazz singer by people who needed a category. The classification was insufficient. She was a classical pianist who sang, and who brought the structural rigor and emotional precision of classical music to every genre she encountered: jazz, blues, gospel, folk, show tunes, the songs of her own composition. She released albums on multiple labels. She performed at Newport. She played Carnegie Hall for the first time in 1963, and the recording of that performance became one of the most celebrated live albums in American music. She had built something real, and built it on terms she had chosen, which was the only way she knew how to build anything. On the morning of September 15, 1963, a bomb exploded beneath the steps of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. 4 girls were killed while attending Sunday school: Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Robertson, all 14 years old, and Carol Denise McNair, who was 11. The bomb had been placed by members of the Ku Klux Klan. It came 10 weeks after the assassination of Medgar Evers, the NAACP field secretary in Mississippi, who had been shot in his driveway while his wife and children were inside the house. The bombing was not a beginning. It was a point in a series that had no visible end. Nina Simone heard the news and went home and tried to make a gun. She said this later, directly, because she said everything directly. She went home intending to figure out how to make a weapon. Her husband stopped her. He told her she knew nothing about guns. She went to the piano instead. The song came out in less than an hour. She did not plan it or draft it or revise it. Mississippi Goddam emerged the way things emerge when the thing being expressed has been accumulating for longer than the immediate event. The bombing was not the beginning. The song was what the account of the last 30 years sounded like, when someone finally stopped making it polite. The opening was deliberately deceptive, up-tempo, almost theatrical, a Broadway patter song on the surface, the rhythm cheerful in a way that made the lyrics land twice, once as you heard the words, and once as you understood what they were reporting. She moved through the geography of it, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and through the specific quality of a people being told to wait, to slow down, to be patient, to wait some more. The song had no patience. It did not perform anger. It reported a situation that existed and stated plainly that the situation had gone on too long. It was not a request. It was a statement of fact and a refusal, at the same time, to continue pretending otherwise. She performed it for the first time publicly at Carnegie Hall on January 3, 1964. The room had come for the woman who played Bach and sang Gershwin and recorded live albums that people played at home in the evenings when they wanted to hear something that took music seriously. They settled into their seats and waited for what they expected. The opening bars arrived. The audience laughed.
Diane, in the third row, laughed with them. She stopped before the room did.
Something in the playing had reached her. Not the words yet. She was not yet processing the words, but the thing underneath them, the weight the music was carrying underneath its cheerful surface. She went still. She did not know exactly why. She knew only that laughter was the wrong thing to be doing, and she stopped doing it. Simone stopped playing. She looked out at the room. She said, "It is not funny." The laughter stopped. The room went quiet with the specific quality of silence that follows being corrected by someone who is right. She started again from the beginning. This time Diane heard the song knowing what she was listening to. She was from Birmingham. She had not been in the city on September 15th. She had arrived in New York in the first week of September, weeks before the bombing, in her first days at Juilliard, learning the formal vocabulary of music in a building that was, slowly and imperfectly, becoming available to her. She had heard about Birmingham on a dormitory radio. She had called her mother. She had gone to class the next morning because class was what there was to go to. She had been doing, for the 4 months since, what she had learned to do since childhood, continuing, carrying it, going forward with it inside her, looking for somewhere to put it that the circumstances did not yet provide. Sitting in the third row in January, she heard a woman at a piano put it somewhere. Not resolve it, not make it better or smaller or easier to carry. Make it accurate. Say it at its full size, in language that did not soften or deflect or ask the listener to be comfortable with what was being said. Diane sat completely still and listened to every word. The song did not comfort her. It was not designed to comfort anyone. It was designed to tell the truth about what was happening in specific places to specific people, and to decline, on behalf of everyone those things were happening to, any further patience with the situation. After the song ended, she applauded with the room, and then she sat still while the room moved around her, and she thought about her mother in Birmingham, and the 4 months of continuing, and what it felt like to finally hear someone say the exact thing at exactly its full weight. Southern radio stations returned the records. Pressings of Mississippi Goddam that arrived at stations across the South were sent back broken. The vinyl shattered, the records returned in pieces. The station's response was that they had received the message and were refusing delivery. Nina Simone kept a broken copy for years. She said later that the broken records were the most honest response she ever received to anything she had recorded. The song was sung at marches and funerals, and in the private moments when people needed to hear something that did not ask them to wait. It did not leave the years that needed it. Diane taught music in the New York public school system for 30 years, elementary school in Harlem beginning in 1965 and continuing until 1995. She played the record for her students sometimes, when the moment called for it, with an explanation of what it was and where it came from. She played it for her daughter, who grew up hearing it in the house the way you hear certain things, not as background, but as something the house was saying when the everyday sounds were not adequate. She told her daughter about the night at Carnegie Hall. She told her about laughing for a few seconds and then stopping before the room did. She told her about the silence after the words, "It is not funny." She said, "I had been trying to find a way to say what I was carrying since September." She found it in less than an hour. She sat at the piano and found it. And when the room laughed at it, she stopped, looked at us, told us it was not funny, and then she began again. Nobody laughed the second time. Nina Simone died on April 21, 2003, in Carry-le-Rouet, France. She was 70 years old. She spent the final decades of her life primarily in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Switzerland, in France, in the specific exile of a Black American artist who had said too many true things too directly for the industry that owned the distribution to accommodate comfortably. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, 15 years after she died. Mississippi Goddam has been heard continuously since January of 1964. It has never stopped being heard by people who need to hear something that does not ask them to wait. She wrote it in less than an hour. The room laughed when she played it. She stopped and told them it was not funny. She started again. Subscribe to Untold Soul Legends. Every week, we find the moments behind the music that changed everything. The comment section is open. Tell us which Soul Legends story you want to hear next. If this one stayed with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today.